Welcome everyone to Reactor Stockholm from Finland this time. And welcome to my session about where's the return on investment in Teams user adoption. I actually, like 2 minutes ago, I realized I hadn't gotten any title slide in my slide deck. So I actually added it like 2 minutes ago, but here we go. So the session for today is about how you can convince managers, how you can convince your coworkers to invest in the Teams user adoption, invest in Teams trainings and Teams coaching and everything that happens after you have implemented Teams technically in your organization. Awesome. So my name is Karoliina Kettukari, and I come from Finland. I'm working for a company called Meltlake, and I'm leading modern work with Teams, basically handling everything that happens around teamwork, internet, internal communications, etc. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I love to speak at these conferences all around the world and online, of course, at the moment. I also host 2 user groups myself. So we have this Teams community in Finland, and then the other one, a bit newer one, which is called Adoption and Change Management Teams. So if you're interested in user adoption and change management around Teams, I think you are because you are in this session right now. So please check our Twitter account. We have our next session in November. And of course, if you have any questions during this session, you can always use the live event chat. And then I will try to answer those questions after my presentation. If you want to contact me in LinkedIn, Twitter, please feel free to do so. I'm quite active in there as well. But maybe that's enough about me, and let's get started with our presentation today. First of all, I have a small story for you. This is actually something that happened to one of my customers a couple of years ago. And it's a maybe it's a bit sad story, but it's pretty practical when we want to represent what happens in organization when you just give people the tools and do not invest in user adoption. So there was this company, a pretty large, big company in Finland, and they had been using Office 365 for a couple of years. And of course, there were Yammer at the time. Teams wasn't really available then, or at least they weren't using Teams at the time. So Yammer was there, and some people used Yammer. There were some active groups, but really when it was like 40,000 people organization, there was really not that many messages in Yammer, not that many active groups. And they had licenses. They haven't really trained Yammer to their employees. They haven't told why we have this tool. Why should you use Yammer? Why, for example, you should use Yammer instead of email groups? So people weren't really using it. The company was paying for it because it was in the licenses, and but it wasn't in active usage. And then a couple of years went by, and then some person in the company started thinking that, hi, we need some kind of tool where all of our employees can discuss about topics, can share information, can give praise, can have conversation with each other. And then they came up with this super cool idea. Let's take Facebook Workplace. And this story isn't about which is better, Yammer or Facebook Workplace. The moral of the story is that they had the licenses to Office 365. They had been using Yammer. It was there. But then they decided to take yet another tool, yet another licensing costs to the company, and train people to use yet another communication device. And all of this hassle and all of those hundreds of thousands of euros you just throw to the well would have been avoided if they would have been trained and implemented Yammer with user adoption in the first place. So these kind of things happen in organizations all the time right now. We are just taking new tools to replace the old ones because no one isn't using the tool. But maybe we should start thinking about how can we utilize the tools we have at the moment to the max. And this is also the case we have with Teams at the moment. Because the usual story at the moment with Teams is that when we ask our clients and our customers in our workshops, are you using Teams? The customers are like, of course we are using Teams, and that's wonderful. But then when we get deeper into the conversation, so what parts of Teams are you using? So people are telling me, oh, we have lots of different group chats in Teams, or we have lots of one-to-one chats in Teams. And then we have meetings in Teams. For example, this user group right here is a live event in Teams. But we all know, or hopefully we all know, that Teams is so much more than just a chatting tool, just a meeting tool. Because Teams, of course, it is the replacement for Skype. It is you can have the meetings in Teams, but then you have SharePoint in Teams. So you have your internet in Teams with the new cool SharePoint home site app. You have your files in SharePoint in Teams. You can utilize your Office programs, for example, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, of course, storing the documents in Teams, but also co-creating, collaborating on those documents in Teams. Then we get a little bit further. Then you have OneNote, so you have your meeting memos in Teams. You have Planner and the new Tasks Planner app. You have all of your tasks in Teams. Then we can utilize forms inside Teams or share those forms outside our employees. We have Power Platform, these cool new logos you can see right here. So we can have Power Apps inside Teams, Power Automate in Teams, Power BI in Teams. And it doesn't really stop here. We can have Dynamics inside Teams. We can combine Dynamics and Teams as a one user experience. And then, of course, we have like the Office 365 groups or Microsoft 365 groups behind all of that. So Teams is a pretty huge thing. And Teams is a platform for modern work. It isn't just for chatting. It isn't just for meetings. It isn't just for super simple things that do just one part of your job. You can really have all of your knowledge work inside one window in Teams. And that's really when it gets a bit difficult, because how can you successfully implement something that's huge, something that's really like the hub for your all teamwork, and something that's a platform for all of your modern knowledge work? And when we are talking about return on investment, of course, we are paying like huge amounts of money for licenses. And when we want to convince someone, usually from the upper management, that why should we invest in user adoption? How can we gain the money back we are throwing the licenses every month? How can we gain some return on those licenses? So the answer, of course, is the magical unicorn, and the magical unicorn is user adoption. But of course, like unicorns, it's pretty rare. It's pretty difficult to find anywhere, and it's pretty difficult to convince people that the unicorns exist. So in this presentation, I have gathered some insights from some researches and from my own customer projects, that how can you really convince managers, convince your coworkers and colleagues to invest their time, invest their money in user adoption so that the employees can utilize all of those different aspects in Teams and utilize Teams for the hub for teamwork. Okay, so as we all maybe know, change is super slow. And this is a slot right here. He is also very slow. He likes a slow and simple life. And change in user adoption, change in Teams user adoption projects is maybe a difficult thing to sell because it isn't something concrete you can touch. And when the product you're selling is knowledge, or you're selling less emails, it isn't something like concrete when you have like a product such as a water bottle. So I can easily calculate how much does it cost to produce this water bottle and how much is the return on investment if I sell this for 15 euros in the store. And the simple problem with user adoption is that it will take quite a lot of time. And these quotes right here, this was one of my customer projects last year. This feels like ages ago, even though it was like a year ago. But we had these workshops for the upper management in the company, and the CEO in the company was very critical towards our user adoption projects. We had planned, for example, teamwork development workshops. So not just technical teams trainings, but workshops how the teams can utilize Teams in their teamwork, in their everyday working life, above the basic meetings and chatting tools. And the CEO basically said in our workshop that I don't care at all about this project because our work isn't doing Excel sheets and Teams. Our work is totally different thing. And we were a bit disappointed maybe with my colleague, but we continued with the project. We continued with our user adoption trainings and workshops. And then half a year passed. And in August last year, we had another workshop with the same management group, with the same CEO. And suddenly something had changed in the mind of the CEO. And suddenly they said in the middle of the workshop that our goal actually is that we can have one place for our documents where everyone can see them, we can collaborate on our documents, and teamwork is effective. And when you think about that, this kind of change, mindset change, took half a year for a CEO who is a pretty competent person in the company. So you can also think how long this kind of change would take for a normal employee. So the change is pretty slow. But there are tools to fight for the slowness of the change. And as these slots, you maybe know, the slots have huge hooks, like claws, they cling on things. And I like to call it hook of resistance. And the same way, the managers may have the hook of resistance, and that is unwillingness to pay for user adoption projects. And what can we do about it? If the manager comes to us and says, I don't care about your project, you have to find out what's in it for me. So what's in it for the managers? And mostly managers care about results. Managers care about numbers. So let's go and take a look at a couple of researches that have been done last year. Super interesting researches and what they tell us about Teams user adoption. When we are thinking about why are companies implementing Teams, so Gartner did this research last year, and it was super interesting results. Of course, we are coming to this year's situation a bit further on in this presentation, because the situation at the moment is way different than it was a year ago. But still, a year ago, 70% of the companies who were moving to the cloud and who were implementing Teams in their organization said that the main reason for utilizing Teams is basically that we want to cut down, for example, licensing costs from our on-premise solutions, or we want to cut down our costs for our on-premise servers. And we want to move to the cloud because it's the trend to go to the cloud. And only 20% of the companies said that actually we want to develop our ways of working. We want to be more efficient in teamwork. We want better internal communication. And that's why we are implementing Teams. And this is a huge difference between in the attitude when we are talking about implementing Teams because of licensing reasons, because of technical reasons, and implementing Teams because we want to develop something in our company. And now it gets interesting, because when we are going to take a look about another research, this is also research from last year. You maybe have seen this somewhere already, but further research about the economical impact of implementing Teams in organizations. So what actually happens, how much time you save, how much money you save when you are implementing Teams in your imaginary 5,000 employee organization. And the results were pretty amazing. Of course, this Forrester study was paid by Microsoft, so you always have to be maybe a bit careful when you take a look at those numbers. But anyway, 4 hours per week were saved by improving our collaboration, improving our communication. For example, that your information is visible in one place inside Teams, and you don't have to go through your emails, through your documents, through every single place in your computer to find some certain piece of document or information. So you can save hours just by implementing Teams. Cool. And then you also may have less meetings. And less meetings mean that you have a place, you have the tools to work on things between the meetings. Because in the previous world, in previous times, the meetings were the place where we all gathered together and started working on something. But now when we have Teams, we have all our materials in Teams, we have our discussions in Teams, we can work on those documents, we can work on our files and projects between the meetings as well. And that leads to having less meetings, which should free up time to, for example, do the materials together with just one coworker instead of gathering a whole group of 10 into one meeting. I know that at the moment, some of people had told me that actually right now they are having way more meetings each week because it's such a easy way to set up a Teams meeting. I can just click a link and then send the link to everyone, and yeah, we have a meeting. But maybe having super many meetings is not the main goal in implementing Teams. And then also, especially when we were talking about first-line workers, and people who are maybe not in the office, not in front of computers the whole day. The research showed that they could save up to 8 hours. That's pretty much. I don't know if it's really 8 hours, but they could save lots of time when they had all of their solutions or all of their applications in one place. And basically that means that when you open Teams, you have the Teams window and you utilize Teams as a platform for teamwork. You don't have to switch to different solutions. You don't have to switch between applications. You don't need any extra credentials. You don't need any extra login information. You just have one place, one window, and you find everything inside Teams. And all of these kind of things and many more add up into almost $3 million savings per year in this imaginary company they were researching in this study. And even though we maybe don't want to take these numbers by the letter, but they tell us something. And they tell us that implementing Teams in our organization, there are some real savings you can gain. But if we then go back to the other study, the first one I showed you, why companies are implementing Teams. So the main reason they are doing is technical. The main reason is the IT department wants to implement Teams. And that is actually like technical trainings. The tool is there, go and use. But when we are talking about new ways of working, so actually all those kinds of things we can actually achieve those savings with. So we cannot achieve the 4 hours per week time savings with just technical trainings. We can't achieve 20% less meetings with just technical trainings. So if we really want to achieve all those savings in time, in money, we have to be interested in the new ways of working. And how can we realize those new ways of working from theory to reality is, of course, with user adoption. And this is maybe the thing why managers should be interested in paying your user adoption projects, because the user adoption is how you can achieve those monetary and time savings. Okay. Then, as I told you in the beginning, many managers are interested in numbers. So what should we actually measure in our user adoption projects? So how do we know our user adoption and the user adoption project was successful? And this is something pretty, I don't know, funny, but pretty interesting, because goals this is the alien meme guy right here, and goals are sometimes very hard to find in user adoption projects. And if you're a consultant, you maybe want to help the customer to decide what are those measurable goals the people should utilize. So how to measure success? What kind of things should we measure? And since up until this year, the one thing that was super simple to measure and the one thing that really told have we succeeded or not was this cat right here. And this is a Finnish wordplay, because the cat in here is mau. So it's a mau, it's a cat in real life, but mau is also Finnish and it's meow, so it's what the cat says. And mau in terms of Teams is of course monthly active users. So up until this year, the monthly active usage rate was something every customer should have measured. This is one of my customer projects from the last year, and these are their team's monthly active usage rates. So as you can see, we started from like 0 active usage in Teams, and then we ended up to 80% active usage in Teams. And this was a great number. This was a great measurement last year. Because, of course, what does monthly active usage tell you? It tells you that how many people in your organization opens Teams, maybe send some messages, reads messages in daily basis. So it tells if people are technically using Teams. And when we had options, when we had maybe Skype, when we had emails, when we were seeing each other in the office every day, we could, for example, talk face to face. So this monthly active usage rate was actually something that was a good measurement. But yeah, the world has changed a bit during the last year. And at the moment, in every company, for example, in Finland at least, the monthly active usage rate is nearly 90%. Because everyone is using Teams because they have to use Teams. They don't have any alternative because they have to work remotely. They have Teams meetings every day. They have Teams chats every day. So we have the monthly active usage rate very high, but does it really tell anything about the Teams user adoption? Has the user adoption succeeded? Are people also utilizing all the other aspects in Teams than just the meetings and the chat? So the monthly active usage rate has rocketed in the sky this year, and at the moment it isn't the best measurement you can have when you're thinking about how should we measure the success of our Teams implementation. So the numbers are maybe not enough anymore, or maybe the technical numbers are not enough. And this has been a pretty difficult conversations I've had with my customers this year. And the conversations have usually been with the IT department. And the IT manager says that we do not need Teams user adoption because our monthly active usage rate is 90%. And does it really tell something anymore? Because you have to use Teams, you don't have any choice, you have to use it. So of course, the technical number is high. But what about all the other stuff? Question that comes to mind is that what do you really do with all the time and money you save? So if we are thinking technically, we have been implementing Teams, everyone are using Teams, and we are now saving the magical 4 hours per week per employee, which is a huge number. So actually what those employees are doing with the 4 hours they save? Are they just like drinking coffee at home for 4 hours more? Or are they playing Pokemon as they do in here? So we should also think about what are we going to do with those time and money savings. What's also interesting for me, for at least my point of view, is that is the time savings, money savings, is the effectiveness all there is? I've also talked about lots of, for example, with communication managers and HR managers, and they all want that we will be working more effectively with teams. We will be more effective, we will be more productive, we will perform better now when we have teams. And but the productivity has a limit. People can't be productive all the time. For example, Microsoft in Japan last year, they did this experiment that they started to have shorter working weeks. So they worked, for example, 4 days per week instead of 5 days per week. And what happened? They worked for a shorter period of time, but actually they were in the end more productive. So it may not be the best solution that you say 4 hours per week, and then you can work effectively 4 hours per week more. And this may be a difficult conversation to have with the managers, because now we are not talking about numbers anymore. We are talking about feelings, and especially in Finnish, in Finland, talking about feelings is not easy. It's pretty hard. And when you are talking about feelings with your managers, it isn't something concrete. It isn't something very trendy. It isn't something you can sell like the product, like the water bottle. And you should have some ways to measure also happiness, measure well-being, and measure, are you really more productive with the time savings, money savings you have achieved. And we also have some tools for that, because Microsoft has the productivity score tool you can utilize. We have My Analytics in Teams you can utilize. For example, I love the My Analytics because it tells me that, hey, please, can you have this meeting just for 45 minutes instead of 60 minutes? And it tells me that should I make some lunch reservations in your calendar so you don't forget to eat lunch. That's great. But also, this was actually announced at Ignite just a couple of weeks ago. So we are now getting this new well-being insights in Teams. And I think when we are talking about the ROI in user adoption, so the return of investment in user adoption projects, this can be also a very interesting tool, how to measure the successfulness of user adoption in the employee experience point of view. And then you can measure feelings, and then you can give numbers to feelings. So it's always easier to sell. I really actually wait for this tool to arrive. It should be here in, I think it says in the website that it should be here in October, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in action yet. But I hope it's interesting for many of you as well. Okay. But when we are thinking about the discussion with the managers, so if you are a consultant or if you are working inside a company, and you should convince the manager or convince the CEO, CIO, whatever, to buy your user adoption project. So you want to have some resources for your project. It can be time, it can be money, it can be people. The discussion should not be about money. So the question shouldn't be, how much does this cost? I know in the end, of course, it will cost you money. But if you get into the conversation and you just talk about numbers, you talk about money, you are on pretty thin ice. But there is ways to turn the discussion to the right track. And the question in here is not about money, but the question in here you should be discussing about is, what if we don't? So what happens if we do not invest in user adoption? What happens if we have all of those licenses, we pay, like huge amounts of money every month of those licenses. And we have the Teams as a hub for teamwork. And we utilize Teams as a replacement for Skype. So we are utilizing like the 10% or maybe 5% of the whole experience it can offer to us. And this is a quote, and it's super often misquoted as Darwin, as if Darwin would have said that. But actually, it was this guy called Leon C. Megginson who wrote an article about the species, origin of species by Darwin. And this quote actually is from Leon. And the species that survives in this all the time changing and volatile world are those who can adapt and adjust themselves to the environment that's changing all the time. And the discussion you could have with managers right here is that what happens if we do not invest in user adoption. And for example, if we take 2 factories, like producing these water bottles in here, and the other factory is using pen, is using paper. They are working with the old ways, with the new tools. And then the other factory, they are also using pen, using paper, very manual processes, manual work. But they are, and then both factories will gain Teams licenses. And then the other factory is still using pen, still using paper. Maybe they are having some kind of meetings in Teams. Maybe they are having some kind of chat groups in Teams. And they don't have resources, they don't have any training to utilize Teams any better. And then the other factory, they actually start thinking that how could we utilize these new tools to improve our processes? And it doesn't have to be a huge change at first. We don't need to go to like Power Apps, create some new workflows for everything. We don't have to transfer everything at once. But maybe we want to take things piece by piece and step by step. And maybe they want to, for example, make their internal communication in the factory a bit better. I have talked with quite many large companies where they are manufacturing products in factories. And usually, for example, the internal communication in the offices works pretty well, because the office workers like us in here, we are using the desktop computers all day long. But when we go to the factory, say, for example, don't have cell phones, mobile phones, they don't have any, maybe at all, computers at the factory, and they do not get the information from the offices to the factory workers that well. So we have the possibility, we could utilize Teams for our factory workers as well. We can, they can use their own mobile phones. We can, of course, buy mobile phones to them. That's always another big discussion about money. But the factory that can utilize the tools they have, that can adapt to the modern world, especially when it has changed quite a bit during these last months. So if we can utilize the tools, if we can invest in user adoption, that how can we really transform our day-to-day work life and adapt to the environment? So that's, I think, where the real money and real savings lie. Awesome. So this is my goodie bag for you. This is also my pretty much last slide for today. And if you want to remember 3 things in this presentation today. The one thing is that change needs, you need to have money to make change. You need to have resources. The resources, of course, can be personnel, can be time, can be money, but you need to invest in user adoption to gain some change. So you need to find the return on investment for the project. You need to find what's in it for me, for the managers. It may be numbers, it may be employee experience, it may be improved processes, but find the thing that the manager are interested in, and then you will find the return on investment as well. The second thing is that change takes time. So be patient. You have to be patient. You have to give time. It's an impossible journey to try to do a user adoption project in 2 months. It takes like a year or 2 years or 5 years because the world is changing, because Teams is changing the whole time. So if you can't, maybe you can use the same amount of work you would normally do in 2 months, but then try to do it in the amount of, for example, 5 months or 6 months. So not have workshops and trainings every day for 1 month and then forget everything, but instead have, for example, trainings and workshops twice per month. So you can update the materials, you can update the content in your user adoption workshops. And in the end, I really strongly agree. I really strongly think that it's about employee experience. So it's not only about being super effective, or not only being about being performing well, being all the time more productive, but it's all about well-being at work, having happy employees, because also we have had researches that show you that happy employees are productive employees and they are effective employees. So I know that talking about employee experience and feelings may not be so concrete as opposite to talking about numbers, but then you can utilize those productivity tools, you can utilize those well-being tools that will soon come to Teams and show the numbers of employee experience and well-being in Teams as well. Cool. That was everything I had for you today. I hope you gained some new insights about this topic. We have this Learn TV in the internet, and there are lots of different short videos and short learning paths to all kinds of topics around Teams and M365, also Azure, everything like that. So there is this one learning path you can utilize when you want to know more about user adoption. And of course, please answer to our survey. You can utilize the code we have in here, and you can reach me from Twitter as well. But I hope you gained some insight about this presentation, and let's check if there was any questions in our chat at the moment. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I have to share my presentation again. Now it's better. So there were a couple of questions in here. Let's say, what do they say? Our adoption of Teams in the UK has been hugely successful during the COVID due to good adoption and change management. That's awesome to hear. That's super awesome to hear. And it's also great to acknowledge that you are done yet, because it's a ongoing thing, it's a journey. I always like to say that user adoption is a journey, it's not a project. And it was once a slogan I wrote in every slide that I took, I showed with my customers. And maybe I should take it back to my slides, that user adoption is a journey, not a project, because that's really the case. So awesome thing. It's great to hear that you have succeeded in that one. And then Alan says that in UK we measure quality as well in our user spot surveys. That's also a great idea. And of course you can utilize not only those productivity and well-being tools in Teams, you can just make a forms survey, and you can utilize the forms survey, for example, not for quantity measurement, but also for quality measurement. A great point. Then there is a question, will a champion network on Teams help? Yes, definitely. So champion network is one of my favorite topics as well, because I strongly think that we always need to have a strong internal network inside the organization to drive change. And when we are thinking about return on investment in user adoption projects, it can be sometimes difficult to get the time investment for the Champions program or Champions network. And then you just have to think what's the correct way to get the time investment for the Champion network. But yes, definitely you should utilize champions if it's possible. And Microsoft also has the Champion Network program. So if you have people in your organization who are interested in the topic, but you don't have a champion network per se at the moment, so you can always say to people that they can sign up to the Microsoft Champions program, and then they will gain access to some webinars and meetings and etc. Cool. Okay, so another question, what's the roadmap on the development of Microsoft Teams? Would it be possible to leverage all of Power Platform tools within Teams? So at Ignite, they announced quite a lot of improvements to the Power Platform side in Teams. At the moment, you can find Power Apps in Teams, you can find Power Virtual Agents in Teams, and Power BI in Teams. Also, Power Automate is coming to Teams. They have some limitations. For example, if you create a Power Virtual Agent in Teams, it's only usable within one team. And then if we want to create Power Apps, we can might run into licensing problems pretty soon. But I think Microsoft really strongly drives the idea of Teams as a platform, and really strongly drives the idea that in the future, at some point, maybe not right now, but in the future, you could really utilize Teams as the one place where you can also find all the Power Platform capabilities. Cool. Let's see if there are no any more questions in here, it seems. So thank you super much for everyone who was in the presentation today. I will share the slides in a slide share, and I will also get the links to the researches I showed in the presentation, so you can then go and read those studies yourselves. But if there are no more questions at the moment, oh, one. Yeah, Alan said that breakout rooms in November will be a game changer. Yes, everyone has been waiting for the breakout rooms. I don't know if people were waiting more about private channels or breakout rooms, like two super cool things that has come to Teams. And I also think that breakout rooms will be a huge thing when we are thinking about user adoption workshops or simply any kind of workshop you will have through Teams. Cool. Great points, Alan. Okay, so I think this was everything for me today. And I hope you have an awesome day and awesome week and awesome rest of the year as well.